So today I'd like to investigate a theme which is of immediate practical relevance for me, and it's also related to what was touched upon earlier about the potential of information. So what I want to look into is whether there is a way of gradually evolving knowledge, and where this knowledge is a kind of knowledge which is adjusted to the entire life condition and is a kind of knowledge which can stand in the middle of everything and combine with everything. So it needs to be a very flexible kind of knowledge, a kind of knowledge which can be relevant anywhere and at any place. And where the purpose of the knowledge is the same as the purpose of everything else, which once again comes back to this general striving to live as good a life as possible according to the understanding we have, and to do it in a way which enables us to learn from experience and to adjust and evolve as time goes on. So kind of knowledge of an intelligent action now, which has in it an attitude of openness for always adjusting to the way things are in life. So we've seen that words have different consequences and kinds of action, and certain questions create certain associations, and these associations make it so that behavior and daily existence is influenced. So this is from the perspective of the information structure itself. is there a way of structuring information which is generally well adjusted to the present life circumstances? Is there a way of having a theoretical knowledge which is structured in such a way that it can be useful and beneficial in our practical daily life circumstances? One reason why I'm asking the question in this kind of way is because I'm thinking about digital communication technology. How can these platforms be used in a way which will actually lead to an improved understanding and an improved quality of cooperation between people? This is one of the underlying questions. Because if we can find a way of using language which is specially adjusted to the present circumstances and to the technologies that we now use as mediums for this language, then this can give us a very big potential in improving our collective understanding. And at the moment, since human society has become increasingly complex, and since the problems which need to be solved are of a big magnitude, this is a great time for finding a more intelligent knowledge for the collective. Now, of course, we do have what we call the sciences and all of the research programs. However, the fact of the matter is that these research programs and sciences, they are a part of established social institutions, and they have their roots firmly in the past, and in many ways they operate within a conceptual framework of the past. And very specifically, what I'm thinking about is that they are specialized. We don't have something which is just called science. I've never seen a professor in science who has simply studied science. We have something like philosophy of science, but I've studied philosophy of science myself, and that is not science. That is a very specialized field which is highly theoretical and which operates in a very narrow range. So we don't seem to have today a general science. We don't seem to have a science of the life situation, a science of how to live a better life all in all, how to coordinate all of the moving bits and pieces. We have many interesting subfields, for example, logistics. Logistics is a field which deals very much with coordination, and we can learn from fields like this However, it's clear also that logistics is also within a very narrow field. It's usually considered from the perspective of a certain private company whose primary goal is the profit motive and the success in the marketplace economically. Which doesn't mean that it's not relevant, but we don't really have, as far as I can see, any knowledge today, any systematic, socially evolving knowledge of how to organize daily existence. So that's in a way what I'm seeking here. So if we can then use all of the existing technology and the tools we have at our disposal, if we can use those tools and combine them in such ways as to get actionable, specific, practical knowledge, then we also have the technology to do the experimentation. We also have the technology to very closely monitor and measure what happens and share this with the whole world very openly. Once again, we can here learn from the sciences, who also have a principle of open sharing. However, as mentioned, they have this structure of specialization. And within the specialized fields, there are their own kinds of conceptual traditions. They speak their own kind of language, you could say. And for most people, when they are going to read any scientific paper, it is very hard to pull out from it any general principles for how I could improve my own position, or how we could improve our position. So this is what seems to be missing. Now, I got an idea for how this could possibly be done. Now, this notion is a notion of what I would call a mind pool. In the mind pool, we have a great collection of interesting information and knowledge of any kind. Looking into the mind pool, we can then combine some pieces of information in different ways, and in this way we can create entirely new thought systems. These new thought systems will at the initial stages be highly speculative and original and random. However, since we as human beings are the ones who do this, we are the miners, you could say, during the process. And since we also have the judgment and the intuitive understanding of simply being, you know, actually one of those living beings in the real life conditions, then we can have a certain ability to see what information could be possibly relevant where. So in that sense, we can make intuitive judgment calls about the information in the mind pool. When we see a random combination of information which gives an original kind of thought system, then we can recognize rather quickly, in many cases, whether this is relevant, and if so, in what way it is relevant. So in other words, the system I'm describing here combines a certain systematic randomness with human judgment. The next natural phase is the phase of testing out in practice. And here we can use a very simple existing digital technology. And this existing digital technology can then be utilized to test out specific methods under real life conditions and document exactly how it plays out. And then, as we document how this plays out, we over time discover what methods will systematically have a tendency to work and which methods will have a tendency not to work. The methods which have a tendency not to work can be discarded, while the methods which have a tendency to work can be continued. So this is the principle of this possible evolution of knowledge. So what we're looking at here is a model for an evolution of a science of action, a practical science of social action and of social communication, where we can test out various things which have been intuitively picked as interesting candidates by the miners. Then we can use the digital technology to observe very precisely the results. And at the end of the day, the knowledge which comes out of this process can then be conveyed in a video-based language. That means that it's a language which has as its basic letters the physical postures of people in a room. So it's a three-dimensional language, incredibly natural, intuitive language, where all the words can be put into this language. So in other words, we can then transmit this knowledge and transmit the insights which are reached in a way which will be very easy to understand, and therefore also easy to replicate and easy to test out further, and then to add various alternatives, possible improvements, variations. And I don't see any limits as to what could come out of this kind of knowledge. So this is something that I'm looking at. I've been looking at it for a long time, and this is where I want to hear what thoughts other people have about this system, about this way of approaching the social issues we face today. Can we face the social issues today in a way which is scientific and empirical and directly situational, and where we can systematically test things out and revise it and improve it and observe it openly and publicly in such a way that the knowledge gradually evolves over time into real solutions that are to the benefit of everybody. I want to hear your thoughts about this.